Odyssey G9 monitor review, ridiculous in the best possible way. Samsung's 49-inch curved beast is great at what it does, but not everything looks great on it. The Samsung Odyssey G9 is a super ultra-wide gaming monitor. It has a large 49-inch screen with a 32:9 aspect ratio and 5120 by 1440 resolution, which is the equivalent of placing two 27-inch, 1440p monitors next to each other. It also features an aggressive 1000 arc curved screen to bring the edges within your field of vision. It's designed for gaming with a fast 240Hz refresh rate, native FreeSync variable refresh rate, VRR, support, and GSANC compatibility to reduce screen tearing. It doesn't have mini LED backlighting like the model that eventually replaced it, the Samsung Odyssey Neo G9/G95 NAS49A G95, but it still features a VA panel with edge-lit local dimming. Samsung Odyssey G9 Review Interface. Easy to adjust via a joystick under the right front edge. You bring up the Odyssey G9's menu using the joystick located under the monitor's front edge, about 12 inches from the lower right corner. This takes some getting used to. These buttons are typically located on the back panel or in a corner, though its placement closer to the center makes sense given the monitor's width. The button, which doubles as a navigational joystick, provides instant access to power, input, PIP and PBP settings, in addition to the main menu itself. At the top of the Star Trek Modern menu are 5 circles that provide at-a-glance information about current key settings: black equalizer, response time, refresh rate, adaptive sync, and low input lag. It's easy to adjust those settings, or any others. Just move the monitor's control stick to the right to move one level down and press the stick to make your selection. The top-level options include game-based settings like the refresh rate, black equalizer, adaptive sync support, and so on. Picture, for adjusting the brightness, contrast, color presets, and other features. PIP/PBP, on-screen display, for changing the menu's language and the amount of time it stays up on the screen. System, for adjusting the infinity core lighting, local dimming, volume, and dynamic contrast, and support, for diagnosing problems, updating the firmware, and resetting everything to the factory defaults. Samsung Odyssey G9 Review Performance. The Odyssey G9's unusual shape results in an unusual resolution, 5120 by 1440, a 32:9 aspect ratio, or the equivalent of two side-by-side 2560 by 1440 monitors. This is more than 3 times the size of a standard 1080p, 1920 by 1080 display, but still smaller overall than a single 4K, 3840 by 2160 screen, so you won't need as beefy a graphics card to max out the details in your games. This could be changing in 2023. The next generation of the Odyssey G9 Neo, which replaced the original G9, is tipped to be the world's first 8K ultra-wide curved monitor. The screen fared well in our SDR color tests. Using a Klein K10A colorimeter and DisplayCal calibration software, we measured the Odyssey G9's delta at a solid 0.26, and we determined that it covered 113.7% of the sRGB color gamut and 80.6% of the DCI-P3 gamut on its default settings, custom mode. Most gaming monitors we've looked at do this well or better. The Razer Raptor 27 covers 162% of the sRGB spectrum. The ultra-wide LG 38GL950G covers 148.9%, and the ViewSonic Elite XG270QC covers 139%, for example. Samsung advertises 125% sRGB coverage for the Odyssey G9, something we only came close to in cinema mode, with 123.9%. But all of the default presets, the others are high bright, FPS, RTS, RPG, AOS, and sRGB, were more than respectable, with the lowest performing sRGB, 102.6% of the sRGB color space and 72.7% of DCI-P3. Average brightness, as measured with the monitor brightness maxed and all dynamic adjustment settings disabled, was upwards of 400 nits in every mode, with the brightest unsurprisingly being high bright, with 418.6. This is well above what we saw with the Razer Raptor 27, 295 nits, and the Acer XFA240, 352 nits, but below the likes of the LG 38GL950G, 544 nits, or the ViewSonic Elite XG270QC, 524 nits. Brightness improves even further in HDR mode. That's the only way to obtain the Odyssey G9's rated peak brightness of 1000 nits, a number we confirmed in our testing with Portrait Display's Calman software. Note, though, that we saw brightness in that range in tests utilizing only a portion of the screen, from about 10% to about 50%. At full screen, the HDR brightness maxed out at 561 nits. By any measure, the Odyssey G9's brightness is highly respectable. Although the display presets offer a distinguishable amount of variation among them, I rarely found them especially useful. The FPS preset, in particular, was distractingly bright, though this implementation was likely inspired by the frequently dark cast of those games playing areas. The murky uncertainty of dark tunnels and shadowy ruins are usually part of the fun, and flooding them with light ruins the effect. Cinema, too, exaggerated colors and brightness, creating a dulling effect on motion picture style video. To my eyes, the rather darker custom setting was an excellent choice, if not the best choice, in nearly all situations. Samsung Odyssey G9 Review. Gaming performance makes games with minimal or complementary interfaces feel more immersive. Some games and apps are harder to use or don't make full use of the monitor. The Odyssey G9's gaming-focused features were a delightful plus in almost every scenario. Its 1 millisecond gray-to-gray response time kept our interactions in games snappy, and the high refresh rate, up to 240 Hz, kept the images always moving in perfect pace with the action. Depending on which video hardware drives your computer, you'll also appreciate built-in support for NVIDIA G-Sync and AMD FreeSync Premium Pro adaptive sync technologies, though AMD currently claims the latter is only utilized in 17 titles. These are common gaming monitor additions. For most, its unique screen design is what will most set the Odyssey G9 apart, and prove most divisive. Whether the Odyssey G9 makes sense for you depends more than anything else on the types of games you play and what other software you use, as the large amount of space is not universally well utilized. In our tests, the games that came off best were those where you could easily see everything at once by focusing on the center and not having to divide your attention. The sprawling screen area provided a dazzling field of view in the first-person shooter Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition, where your open field of vision allowed you to drink in every detail of the devastated Moscow you trudged through. The Odyssey G9's width proved even more advantageous in more specialized titles. With Dirt 5, it bestowed the impression of a nearly life-size windshield for looking out on the frantic racing action, and the game's centrally located roadmap and speedometer put the most critical details right where you needed them. And with Microsoft Flight Simulator, it plunged you straight into the cockpit and gave you the broadest possible look at that title's sumptuous, satellite-derived vistas. The Odyssey G9 was considerably less successful with titles using more spread-out interfaces. Because Assassin's Creed Valhalla uses pop-ups on both the extreme left and extreme right of the screen, there was no way to easily take in all the useful information when seated in front of it at a desk as opposed to on a couch some 6 feet away, playing with a wireless keyboard and mouse. Even worse was Sid Meier's Civilization VI: Gathering Storm. I loved being able to see so much of the world map at once, but my neck was swiveling more than a malfunctioning merry-go-round trying to take in the tech and civics trees anchored on the far left and the notifications, diplomacy tools, Civilopedia, and more ensconced on the far right. The width causes other issues, as well, none of which are Samsung's fault. Pre-rendered 3D scenes, like those that pack Assassin's Creed Valhalla, are unlikely to fill the entire screen, which provides a devastating blow to immersion, and playing videos from streaming sites like YouTube results in broad black bars consuming half the display in nearly every instance. Although all the real estate is a boon if you're the type of person who, like me, tends to work with multiple windows of multiple applications at once, so you could have YouTube up in one window, Word in another, and your email client in a third. Under almost any other circumstance, you're unlikely to find an ideal way to fill every inch at your disposal here. Boasting top-notch functionality and impressive performance along every metric, the Samsung Odyssey G9 is worthy of serious consideration from anyone who can make full use of it. So if you have a high-end graphics card, a spare $1,700 or so, an excess of desk space, or a sizable hunk of wall, a stuffed-to-bursting game library you want to apply a unique, and not always completely complementary, visual spin to, and not much desire to use the monitor for everything else, you probably won't be disappointed. But if any of these descriptors doesn't apply to you, you may want to think twice. The Razer Raptor 27 is a superb-looking model that can be found for close to one-third the price. Some monitors have higher refresh rates, such as the Alienware 25 gaming monitor AW2521H, 360 Hz. Others have somewhat more vibrant color, the Razer, the LG 38GL95G, the ViewSonic Elite XG270QC. Still more, the LG and ViewSonic get a little brighter with non-HDR content. Plenty of displays do straight 4K in the still industry standard 16:9 aspect ratio, which will ensure you never have to worry about how your game interfaces look or play. And nearly every regular gaming monitor on the market costs less than this one. All of this combines to make the Samsung Odyssey G9 gaming monitor a luxury purchase for a certain type of gamer with a certain set of gaming preferences and a certain layout of their gaming area. If that's you, this is liable to be one of the best,